My calling in life in my community is to be a community organizer. And that means to build power in community among folks that are most impacted by the laws and policies and rules and regulations of the systems that control and often fail us in our lives. Movimiento Sigue is an organization that is really the brainchild of Rita Martinez. Rita was an organizer and activist here in Pueblo for more than 40 years. The nexus of the Chicano movement was very much here in Colorado and very much centered here in Pueblo, partly because of our large Latinx population. And it was really her vision that we would continue to draw on the strength of the past and lessons learned in the Chicano movement, and that the movement continues. Here in Colorado in particular, we were leading in the nation in the 60s and 70s around rights and protections for all sorts of folks, Latinx folks included, women, folks with disabilities. In the 80s and 90s in particular, and even now into the 2000s, and even now more critically as we move hopefully out of this pandemic, we're seeing that those gaps have all increased, and that Latinx folks in particular are faring much worse than they were at the end of the civil rights movement in the 70s, and particularly here in Colorado. The gaps around housing and healthcare and education are all greater than they've ever been. So we exist to name that and to understand that and to continue to work on building the collective power necessary to create the kinds of systems change that we need to improve our lives. The movement has always centered youth as an asset and a powerful piece of driving things forward. And so we continue to do a lot of work and center the voices of youth, not just as future leaders, but as leaders right now. The piece that we approached the Women's Foundation to fund is a youth conference, an opportunity to bring together youth for one full day, sharing identity with youth as a means of a protective factor for them as they're navigating, sort of the big and little ways in which racism and discrimination show up in our lives. For too often, we've experienced tremendous historic neglect across the state, in this region, here, certainly here in this community, we still experience that. And so for us, it's really about attempting to understand the ways and to share with one another the ways that we are an asset and our identity is an asset, our cultural contributions are an asset, and not the liability that they often are treated as. And we know that when we meet the needs of folks who are most marginalized in our communities, we make things better for everyone. We are lifted as others are lifted. That's really what repairs past harm and heals and establishes what community can look like. That sense of longing for belonging is so strong in all of us, no matter what our ethnic backgrounds are. That sense of belonging and connection is so strong in us. We want to be a part of that. And so part of community organizing is fostering that sense of belonging and answering the longing for belonging that lives in all of us.